Well, hello everyone. How is everyone doing? I'm doing pretty good today. I just spent I was gonna originally go live at 2, straight at 2, but I've been spending the past almost hour trying to get Pixelmon to work because we're doing Pixelmon today. It's gonna be awesome. We also have a new shaders we're gonna try and use. A new shaders, and also we're going to try and get render off. I have to turn render off. Performance render off. There we go. Sorry, I'm still trying to get things set up. And I think Minecraft just crashed, so sorry. We're gonna spend a little bit more time on. Oh, loads. It's just slow. Well, anyways, I'm gonna flip over to the Minecraft screen, and hopefully it's working. Single player, new world. What are we gonna call it? You're gonna call it Pixelmon. It's a little hard, but why not? Well, new world options. It's gonna be very interesting because we're gonna play with biomes of plenty. It's gonna be lovely and nice for us. Wow. Oh, trademark. Support Sword and Shield. No, I will not buy Sword and Shield. What are we gonna pick? Because like Charmander's my usual starter, but Torchic and Litten. Back when people played the Roblox Pokemon, those were always my starter. And Litten's my favorite. So what's this thing? Eating a twig? They eat. I know for Sword and Shield this was my starter. And I used to have a little McDonald's toy of Snivy because he was my favorite. But I think we're gonna go with Litten. For the pure fact of Litten's my favorite. Yeah, we're going with Litten. Ah, oh, and we spawned in a Biomes of Plenty. What the fuck is that? Hello, what are you? Can I take it with me? Oh yeah. Ah! Oh, Cocoberry. I've never played Pixelmon before at all. I don't really know what I'm supposed to do or what I can do. So I'm just gonna run around and collect things. I probably should have figured out how to use this first. Wait, can I throw my... We're looking at controls really quick. Pixelmon. Descend. Next party. Rename... What? Can I throw... How do I throw... Send out Pokemon. Got it. Where's a Pokemon? We're gonna fight it. Oh. Litten. I thought it said Litten the Chaos, and I was like, damn. I think I just found my, Come on, we're gonna fight him. How do I fight him? Do I punch him? There we go. Turn 1. What? We're gonna scratch him, see what happens. This is a very awkward place to battle. I'm going to be honest. This is kinda wonky. What is a roll-a-likey? What's Ember? Oh, this guy's level. We should probably run away. Level 11. We're gonna get our butts kicked. Oh, we can't escape. Great. Odor sleuth. That sounds disgusting. That sounds really gross. Oh. I'm in the picture now. What? Oh, my Litten. Oh no. Oh shit. She's at level 5? Wait, what? I'm a dude? Oh my god. Litten's gotta... I like Litten. Litten can be whatever they want to be. I mean, I'm gonna follow this red light because I'm hoping it's a Poke Shack or something. I'm just gonna try and avoid every single thing possible. What is this? What? What is that? I'm scared of that. I should have figured out how to play first, I'm gonna be honest. Let's get basic tools that now that we're already having no Pokemon, because who knows what is actually going on. Oh god, is my stream being slow? I'm sorry. It's either my stream or my second computer. Who knows? We're taking refuge in the cave. Bah, bah, bah. At least I know I can't get my ass whooped in here. Well, that's a lie. That is a big old lie. What the fuck is that? Oh, that's a hunter. What's a baby hunter called? I don't remember. I have no idea. Who actually knows what I'm ever talking about? Sorry, 1 second. Oh, fuck was that? Well, anyways. This is probably not the best angle to stream at. What is that? A Geodude. Oh. Wow, I think we should try and find one of the places, Pokestops. What the fuck happened to my voice? I sound like fucking Donald Duck. Ah. Shit. Ugh. I'm gonna collect some more stone really soon. What's I? Okay. Ah. Shit. That brought me to a wiki. What's you do? Oh, nice. Will Ghastly try and fight us if we don't have a working What is that? What's that? A working Pokemon? Silicon. Why do we need silicon? Silicon? Is it pronounced? It's probably pronounced silicon. Yeah. Oh, more silicon. Silicon? Yeah. Get out of there. Get out of the cave. What? I still don't like the look of that thing. I think it's strange looking. Oh no, that was iron. We have some iron now. And we still don't have a healed Pokemon. Okay, wait. What does... Wait, we can do this. Okay, what is this stuff? Who knows? Let me... switch... no, I can't switch it over. The apricot. What's an apricot? We melt them. How... what? Okay, I'm very confused. I will eventually need to find some food. I don't think climbing up the mountain is gonna be the best idea. I still don't know what those things are, and that's kind of weird. How do we find a whatchamacallit? What is this? Can I bring it with me? Can I mine it? Is it like a Christmas tree? What is it? I'll probably not come back for that. I don't care. Can I eat root? I cannot eat root. What is this? I don't know. Should change the stream title to like Noob Plays Pixelmon. Wait, can I eat the berries? These berries? I can. Wait, can I also plant these? I cannot. We're gonna go to the top of the mountain to see if we can find any leverage. And more berries. Oh, that's a blue one. What? If I remember anything from 2014 about Pixelmon, it's usually little Pokestops are everywhere. I don't... Oh, it might be because we're in a different biome. We're in a biomes of plenty. That's why. We need to find a not biomes of plenty. I think that's a way to go. I think the color... Oh, do normal mobs still spawn? Because if normal mobs still spawn, I'm gonna be terrified. I don't remember if they do or not. Why are there so many Weedles everywhere? I've seen like 4 of them already. The only Pokemon I've seen multiple of is Weedle. This way! This way! Ah! This is a plains. There should be one over here. If not, I'm fucking Googling it. Is it because I'm not intimidating? Or is it because I'm an idiot that I can't find them? I'm tempted. Oh, wait, I don't have... I can't go on here. Oh. I think I might just be an idiot, and that's why. I'm probably just an idiot. Yeah. see another pretty light in the sky. And I don't know if that's because it's a raid. Like a Pokemon raid from stuff. Or if it's a, Pokestop. But I don't know how to find Pokestops, apparently. Because the only Pokemon I have kinda passed out. Maybe it's a rave because it changes colors. I mean, might be better. I think we're gonna have to Google it. How to make either unfainter or a let me tab for a second. How to make unfainter in Pixelmon. Revive. Wiki. Thank you. That's what it's called. What's a Zigagoon? What? Revive? No, I want a Pokestop. Pokestop! Unfainter. How do you spell Pokestop? English is really hard today. Jeez. Pokestops are... Wait. What about the nurse? How do I fucking Google shit? Nurse Joy. NPCs. Pixelmon. I spawned the world wrong. Whoops. Oh well, I guess we're gonna have to figure this out. Or I didn't and I just can't read, which is also a very plausible explanation to why I can't find them. Cause who said I needed to learn how to read to be a functioning human being? Or you can run till we also pass out, or typically as normal people call it, fucking die, and then run the other direction to see if we can find a Pokestop or Poke Hospital. I did not get any of those, did I? Interesting problem. Oh, Linton was revived. By what? The water? What? Oh wait, is it a timer thing? How about we run away? Let me run away. Run. We run. We're level 5 at 1 HP, and this bitch is like, we're level 31. We're gonna bully this kid. Avoided. Probably. I need to start watching where I'm going. Oh. No. Dun 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 dun. This is annoying, to say the least. Who the fuck is that over there? Is it? Oh no, there's a trainer. This is bullshit. Bullshit, I say. Okay. I thought that was gonna go on long enough to... Hello, Fishman. Okay, turns out I did not spawn it in wrong. I'm just an idiot. which is kind of what I presumed, because that's the only explainable answer to everything is I'm just an idiot. You know what? That's okay. Wait, there's baby cactuses? I'm keeping this forever. Dude, there's a magic herb. My one goal by the end of this stream is to either find a place where I can get a lit and revived properly, build a house, or obtain magic herb. What is that? Oh, that's a bunch of trees. Dude, that's my second favorite Pokemon right there. Oh my god. And we're stuck in a desert, and I'm out of food. Might as well make a chest just to throw my stuff in. I'm gonna lose it anyways, so it's... Why not make it not despawn? We'll leave a little treat for us if we ever have to venture back over here. What happens if we just... Okay, we can't punch Pokemon. Kind of assumed that. Wait. That was the one good thing about this. We have seen some pretty cool biomes, though, that we've probably just ran around. Because... If we can make it over there, I want to see if that's either lava or, whatchamacallit? The Pokemon stop. It's lava. No, we're gonna jump in the lava because running this slow is painful. I do now know where to get my favorite Pokemon. What is this? Oh, it's quicksand. I was wondering, but I didn't know. I'm quite a smart person, if you do say so. It's not letting me. Wait, I have an idea. It behaves like water, so we should just be able to plop it out. You know what? I take it back. I'm not the biggest idiot I've ever met. I can get out of quicksand. Dun dun. Oh, that's a big one. Whee! There we go. Which way did we go? We're gonna go this way. I love to see that if I die, my Pokemon is still also fucking knocked out. I think it would just be easier to make Pokeballs and find a new Pokemon. And then find a Pokestop. Can I slash seed? Slash seed. Cannot copy and paste it. That was my only hope to actually getting stuff done. It is very nice that I see there is no normal mobs. There is nothing of physical challenge for me other than existing without Pokemon in a world that thrives on them. I think we're just gonna run into all directions until we find a Pokestop. We don't have food. Wait, are the trees pink now? Oh, we have pink trees. That's nice. Pink is an okay color. What's up? Okay, this is. Oh, wait, I'm looking for trainer gyms. Wait. That's why I couldn't find it on Google. Trainer gyms. No, I'm not. Where am I? Trainer gym. Pixelmon. Pixelmon. Trainer Dims. How do we find them? Find. We did it wrong. We're restarting. Delete. Delete. New. World options. Generate structures. Okay. Everything. Go. Customize. Structure. Defaults. Okay. Next page. Biome settings. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, that's good. Done. Pixelmon. There we go. We fixed it. Probably. Probably not. We're gonna be honest. Oh my god, is that another person? Jesus. There we go. I wonder if it's gonna take us like another hour to try and figure this out again. Before next stream, I will figure out how to actually prepare for stuff. I'm gonna be honest, I doubt that. I'm just gonna try and avoid everything. Wait, is that a... We've been looking at for 30 minutes. Next world, right fucking beside us. Wow. That's really our luck. Ow. How do I get up? Here. It is! Oh my god, I know where we're building our base. Or until we can steal the, Unfainter. This is the only time you're allowed to build beside spawns. Is that... There's two of them?! I hate Minecraft. What is this? I don't know, I'm taking them. Ice Seal, Paralyze... Potion. Oh. Oh, what? Lit and sealed. Can I steal that? I'm gonna try and steal it immediately because stone pickaxe might work. There's one thing to blame if you can't find something, it's world generation. Sometimes I can't tell if the glitchiness on my second monitor is the fact that it's a different computer, or if I'm lagging out. I'm going to guess it's the first one, because I don't like taking credit for my shitty computer sometimes. I'm also gonna need to find... Oh wait, I have wheat. Let's see how fast we can... let's see how fast we might be able to find... Whoa. Oh, found it. Oh. How do we get down there? How do we get up's probably a better question. We're gonna use this stone pickaxe until we can, wood pickaxe until we can, get back up. Just in case we run out of stuff. And it's gonna be painfully long, because why not? Okay. And we're gonna... Here. We're gonna mine down to the iron. I thought that was diamonds for a second and I got really excited before I realized that's not how world generation works, because fuck world generation. Okay, I see nothing here but... What the... but me. I see a lot of ores that I don't know what they are. Well, anyways, yeah, why is this one so much nicer than the last one? Like, the last one had all the nice, plenty of biomes, but this one has good stuff. Oh, crystal. Okay, where was the iron we saw? There it is. This is iron, right? Okay, good. At this rate, we could probably find diamonds. Before I figure out how to make Pokeballs. Okay, what's this? Ruby. We could just go like this. Can't mine that. Probably can mine this. And this. What's this? This is a sapphire. I guess that. I want up there. But I don't want to deal with this guy. Yes, let's noob pull with our wheat seeds. Cause that's how you Minecraft. Sometimes I do believe I'm not the smartest person. Because that is correct. Now if we fall, we're gonna have a bit of an issue. Wait, I gotta go down and look at the thing. Now, what thing, you might ask? This thing. What is this thing? Big spawner. Rock gem. Hardstone. We're gonna take the bones. Why? Because pixel plate, smite, ibs, pearl on a string. More bones. Mine. Oh. I hope we can get... Is there a elytra in this version? I forget if there's a elytra or not, so we're taking the gunpowder. Well, technically we should take any mob drops, but rotten flesh, because we don't have any mobs and rotten flesh is useless. No, mob drops are kind of rare, I guess. Unless I accidentally put it in peaceful mode. Oh. What? Do I? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Mine. Take that with us. I'm gonna make a bet that the second we get out of here, we will not have any idea how to get back out. Or find our way back to the... What is that? That is a... I don't know what that is, so we're not going towards it. Do you think we still need armor? Like armor for, yeah, to protect us from ourselves? Should probably stop it with the self-deprecating jokes, but that's my type of humor. I think that's level 15. We're level 5. I don't think we can fight the Geodude. Sorry. sneak by you. What level are we at? I have no idea. Junk relative. Oh, took a screenshot. Oh, we're at deep. Yeah. I don't really care about gold. And we're gonna go all the way back up. The best thing. I think when we get back up to the surface world, we should try and find some Pokemon that won't insta beat us. Because I'm gonna be honest, maybe coming down into a cave first thing when you start a world isn't the best idea. Especially when you just ran out of food, when you have no food. Well, I have a golden apple. I'm coming to moral dilemma. No more moral dilemma. We fixed the problem. We go up, up, uppity up. We'll go find diamonds later. We're gonna go back to the safety of our little whatchamacallit, Pokestop. I think I might make a later work out a full mod pack for Pixelmon to work. Just to make it all nice for us and stuff, but until then I think it's just gonna be Biomes of Plenty and Pixelmon, just so we don't get confused. I forgot to get coal. Let's put all the nice, we're gonna keep the box on us, all the important looking stuff in here. Where did we put our hole? It's in the ground, probably. Not me contemplating jumping down like this. Oh wait, we forgot some of our pink, purple pink rock thing. Okay, we got some coal. Got some coal. This is lovely. And up we go. I don't know what that is. Is it a... Why is everything level so high? I mean, technically we're right beside here, so we can just try and get him anyways. I don't feel like we'll be staying at this one, so putting our chest here will be pointless after a while, but... Who knows. How do I throw it again? It's R. Okay. Retrieve them. Waiting. Gonna go Ember. Litten is already off. Wow. Let me go heal him. Because we can actually heal people now. Oh. Sticks. Where are my sticks? I need to stop placing torches everywhere. I have 5 pieces of wood left. I think if we can move this, I think we should go and find a nice biomes of plenty biome to live in. Turns out we can... Okay, I'm gonna go and look at the recipes. Aluminum plate. PC we can make. Fossil healer. How do I get aluminum plates? Other than breaking stuff. Because I don't want to have to go find 4 healers to... have to, you know, make myself a little healer so I can go to a lovely little biomes of plenty. You know what I'm saying? I feel like it'd be easier just to, you know, snap on over and get iron plates. Shoot it. Well, let's grab our stuff and go to the other one. I want to make an iron axe really quick. Wait, we're gonna take the bullet. I hope everything can... Oh no, not everything can fit in. What do we have that's not important? We don't need this. We don't need this. We don't need... If we run over very fast, we can probably make it back. As long as we don't run into anyone. There's a giant floating cube. That is fucking terrifying. Holy shit. Put our stuff here. That looks like enough space. We're just gonna run all the way back. The one that we kinda broke. I don't wanna break this one and then go and look for another one just because the sure amount of times that we've I mean the half an hour we went looking for one. Did we get him? We did get him. We almost got him! Do we have any Pokeballs? I wonder, do we have Pokeballs? We do not have Pokeballs. We do have Pokeballs. We do not have Pokeballs. Ember alert! Da, 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 da. It only took me 4 first tries. Fist bump. Dude. Fist bump! Hell yeah. Lick. Take all, I guess. Oh yeah, we can make glow arrows now. That's gonna be awesome. Will we probably need them? No. We are going to need food though, soon. So I'll make a farm outside our new little home, and then we're gonna go check out what the fuck the floating cube is over to our right. Jump. Or we're just gonna drown ourselves really quick. Do I have any food? We're on flesh. Somewhere. Oh. We're gonna actually take all the medicals. Like, stuff, not crystals. By... over here. Oh yeah, I'm gonna need... let's put our stuff over here. Oh yeah, we do have more on flesh. There we go. Da-da-dum. What we're gonna do? Smelt iron. Let's make a bucket. And we're gonna go and see what this cube is. If it's still here. It is. What is that? It's just like, it's a floating stone block. That's weird. How can I can't get rid of it. Level 16? I'm level 16. No, I'm level 6. Oh shit. Run! I'm gonna escape. Oh no. Oh, we are going to... gonna die. Let's explore a little bit. Oh, god damn it. 14. We're gonna fire. Fire! Fire time! Dun 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 I think we can win, even though we're almost dead and 10 levels under them. We're poisoned. Oh, great. I go in mod. Sorry. There we go. There we go. Oh, okay. Where's my mouse? There it is. Ember. I think we can actually hit it. What? Oh, I got this. There's a bird. Oh, we didn't win. We almost got him. We almost got him. That's better than nothing. Way better than nothing. Where's our house? Over here. Dun, dun. Oh. I wonder if our iron's melted yet. We can start our farm. It did. Bucket. Bucket. Is there any way I can, like, click it and run? No, there's not. And it's all back up. Where did I see water earlier? Around the Pokemon. Around the Pokemon Ghost, you weirdo. There we are. Bump. I still don't know what type of mountain that is. Gray. Gray mountain. Nice. We're gonna put it here. But we're gonna go back and need more water. And all the way back over. Should also try and get a bed. I haven't seen any natural animals that to get beds from and stuff. So while we're over here, we're gonna see if this is wool. And if it is, we're stealing it. It is. Where's the other one? There we go. And this is so just if we don't have food by the time we run out, because we don't have any currently, we don't have to walk all the way back, because I'm not sure I remember the way back. Now we're gonna try and go and should probably try and find Pokemon we can actually fight too. There we go. Wood. Perfect. We're now out of wood. I just set our spawn here. We can only sleep at night. I know that. I'm just trying not to make die. That's why. There's our pickaxe. We go here. Oh. What other ores do we need to smelt? Can we smelt crystals? No. Okay. We can smelt this. Silicon. Minecraft is hurting my brain today for some reason. I gotta check what this is. This is mine. What does smite actually do? Because I have no idea. Now I need sticks, and I don't have wood. Throw that out of my... Oh no, what is this? Who are we fighting? I don't see who we're fighting. Litten is paralyzed. Litten, use ember. Litten. Do it again. Do it again, Litten. Be fun. And what's a lick? Oh, there we go. It's over. I'm not really paying attention. I'm sorry. Ah, there we go. We restarted, and then we're gonna go on an adventure or something. Adventure to find woods. Oh no! Here comes the painful slow jumping. We need cobblestone. What are we making? We're making a hoe. One thing I don't have in real life. Hoes. One, two, three. Can't reach. Because I'm short. Jeez. Alright. Bounce back over. I'll put a torch by it or something so they can grow. Night. Bounce back. Oh, this is gonna be painful. We're gonna do something really quickly because this is horrible. We're gonna bounce until we can't. We can speed everywhere. Oh. Probably Litten is going to Ember because strategy is not my strong suit for someone who is supposed to play very, very well. Strategy? Never heard of her. We will lick the Pokemon. If you fight anyone, I feel like if you lick them, you're going to win because they'll be all grossed out. Fighting tips with Ghost. If you're fighting someone, lick them. They're gonna be confused. Why are we jumping everywhere to get down all of our running bar? We have a lava pit. There we go. Lava pit, this way, right? Yes. Oh, it's where the float. I knew there was one there. There's the floating stone block. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum. Whee! There we go. I didn't sleep in my bed. Okay, where was the place? It was somewhere over here? Hopefully? No, I set my spawn. Does the spawn not work? Oh, that's inconvenient. I don't know what that is, but that looks awesome. That is the coolest. That is the coolest mountain I've seen so far on this world. Bounce, bounce, bounce. Over this way. And this is the one we broke. Jump over the snake. Oh. That's my... Oh. One of my friends, I haven't talked to him in a while, but he used to just, like, have 1 or 2 sheep. And he'd always paint them like the Marie for Halloween. And he let kids come and look at them. He also did that and then sent them to a fair. Like, oh, wow. That sounds like something I would do. There we go. Now we won't have to worry about, you know, going back to spawn. Well, we also need wood. What is it? That is a Pokemon, probably. Let's be honest with ourselves. I need to grab my stuff. Here we go. Don't know what that is. It's staying in there. We're gonna have to go and look for the colored things. What? What? Colored things now. They're not called apricots, are they? The colored Pokeball thingies. Yeah. It's gonna be fun. Win the battle. You got pork. That's uncomfortable that Pokemon can drop food. That's really uncomfortable. That's kind of gross, too. I don't see any over here. Oh wait, they didn't spawn in the Acacia Plains. Where do they? They spawn literally everywhere else. Yeah. Where is the everywhere else? What? Find a village. We have quests? Track. Oh. What did we run into? We are needing to run. Then couldn't escape. Well, we're running again. Let me run! There we go. We're tracking this one, so we need to find a village. I think there's a little bit of everywhere else over here. Hopefully. Yeah, there's a little bit of everywhere else over here. Wait, are these? Can I pick these? I can pick them up. Oh, I'm bringing those back when I can remember I went. I'll find my way back to the place eventually, to the house, to the house. I'll need to eventually, because it's food and stuff. What is this place? Oh. It's interesting. I don't think we're gonna find what we need to find in this mountainy desert wasteland, though. What is that? That's a Pokemon. Of course it is. Whee! What's this? Is this wool? Well, that's air. There's air pockets. There's no way back up, is there? What the fuck is that? I don't have a pick. I do have a pickaxe. Let me try and mine it. What is it? Dawn. Oh, those are for what's it called? Evolution. Evolutionizing. Okay, we're just gonna have to float. This is gonna be painful. And we're almost out. Are we almost there yet? I'm gonna run out of speed soon. I don't wanna do that in water, cause that's just horrible. That's mean. This would probably have been faster if I started with this, wouldn't it? Whoops. Whoopsie. Oh, sandy dirt. Oh, we are in like a desert mountain. Also explains why half the Pokemon are electric. Wait, I do have food. Or whatever Pokemon that came from. Fortunately, this is not helpful, but it is. What is it? Wait. Is that a cafe? Dude. Can I steal food from here? That would be really helpful. What are these? What? What is this? Why are there chairs? What? What? I'm so confused. Need the bed. I'll put the bed back down. Is there food in here? Fridge. This is... I'm stealing some of this stuff. This is coming back with me. It's gonna go... Never mind. Water, raw, heart scale, rare, happy. Oh wait, can I give stuff to NPCs? Okay, I don't want the chair in the way. We're moving it. This person will be very confused when they get home from wherever they are. I'm stealing the fridge too. Imagine you go home from like a long day at work to find out that someone stole a necklace and a fridge. Or just, you come home and someone stole a fridge. Nothing else, just the fridge. Well, we also do have food now. Probably head back over to the. What is this? What is this? It looks cool. Plants in there. There's not much else around over here. Should probably figure out how to make Pokeballs soon though, so we can get some more Pokemon. Whoa, what is this? What is that? B. What do we throw out now? Oh, yep. Forgot about that. There's a. Oh, yeah, food. That would probably help for eating this. Can eating real. Oh, that's very helpful. Very, very helpful amount of food. Eat all of it and you don't even get full health back. Why? Why? I think we should try and take her stuff. Then try and remember where the help desk is or whatever. The help desk. The Pokestop is. Then go adventuring looking for the stuff to make Pokeballs with. I know what we're looking for. I just don't know what it's called. At all. It's not a Capricorn. That's a fucking Zodiac. It's not an apricot. That's a fruit. It might be an apricot, actually. It's probably called wait, what is black pepper called? A not a kernel. It's something like that. It's like a Capra kernel. No. Pink thing. Pink blue colorful thing. Random color thing. Colorful black pepper things. What are they called? Around the snake. You're not fighting the snake. We are on the other side of the mountain. We're on the wrong side. Whoops. That's helpful. That is always helpful. Why? Why must we do this? There's one of the lava pits. There's a lot more lava pits than normal around here. Me and a Linton dude gonna go over here. Up we go. And up. What is that? I'm gonna go. Is that a Teletubby? Chance. English is hard today. Transfer tutor. What is that? Is that also a? That looks like the Grim Reaper. You gonna kill us? Okay, I need to stop almost falling off. Oh, that's a trainer. He looks like Venom. Venom. I'm extremely lost. Where is my house? Can I put everything? Oh no, I can't put stuff in the box and then it. Where's the fish? What if I go be furnace? What if I go be with the fish on? I still don't know what that is. Oh, she probably needs to be unfainted to cook food. Wait, our house is gonna be. I know it's not. We transferred down a river. Where's the river? Why must we? There's Fisherman Dude. We probably stole from his house. Let's be honest. We're running in circles. That's always lovely. Lovely, lovely. Lovely we can't find our way back home. What was that? Oh, that's the music restarting. Okay. I thought that would have been something else, and it would have been much less nicer. Okay, what is that? And what? I don't know what that is, but it's terrifying, and I want to go and see what it is. Is that God? I don't believe it is. It could be. Who knows? Not me. If I were going to figure out what it is. What? What? I think we're hallucinating. Why do I have stairs? Where did I get stairs? I don't know what it was, but it dropped my FPS. And that is me. That's rude. Whatever that was, it's rude. Rude. Rude sky orb. I have a feeling we're getting farther away from our house. Our claimed building. Unless it's over here. I don't remember. Dun 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 dun. I have a feeling we're not making it home before I run out of food. That is not going to be a good ending for us. Now. Magikarp. That is not a Magikarp. What is that? That is a piranha. Why is there a piranha in a lake? What? I mean, it is water. Who knows? Okay. Don't remember most of the Pokemon off by heart anymore, and it's weird to me. What's I? I is Dex. Okay, what's M? Ooh. What's in here? Lava, probably, yeah. Home. I mean, I know the mountain's near our house. Not really, but who knows? This is annoying. Okay, we're near the water again. We're gonna end up passing Fisherman House a second time. We weren't supposed to put that there. We were supposed to put that right here. Then. Nope. Not there. Not there. We're gonna put that there. Go bump bump. And keep going up. And up again. Around. There we go. Told you so. We went all the way around. Which way? Ours was on the sandy. But I'm gonna be honest. All of this looks the same to me. All of this does. It's all just dirt. Which one's the sandy? Dirt. Not this one. So it must be over here then. Right? I think we should go this way, because this way is left. I think. I could be right. Who knows? Is that a Pokeball? Can I have that? Can I? What? What's an anchor? Sneak for more info. Water. Oh, water amulet. Oh, we're finally on the sandy place. And we were on this side, so we'll just run over here until we find it, hopefully. What is that? What the fuck? Oh, that's just a bunch of trees. Whoops. And we're out of food. This isn't nice. This is annoying. Let's go this way. It is not, in fact, over here. On the other side? Oh, we're turning our options. That's not chat. I need. No. Far plus. This is horrible. Horrible on the computer. That's fine. That's fine. We need to find our way home. Do I remember that that is? No, I do not. It is not over here, probably. No. I'll go back over here. See if I can see it with Optifine. Oh, there it is. We were going the right direction. We just couldn't see far enough. Let me get back over and turn my render distance back down, because I don't know. Or just a little bit. Now time to bounce back over, because this always works well. Oh yeah, because spawn's on top of the mountain. My memory sucks, Jesus. I mean, we weren't that far away. For the most part. It's only far because we have to jump walk instead of the horrible fake sneak walk. This is faster. No, it's not. It looks faster for some reason. Maybe it's not because we're jumping. Yeah, definitely a little bit faster. Still horrid and painstaking, but not as bad. Get back over. I feel once we have enough food, we're going back out adventuring. I'm gonna keep the render distance up so we can find a ride back. Not. Do I have any bones? Do I have any bones? I do. I'm gonna make a bone meal. Please speed up. Okay, this is... we're going back to the normal one. Where's sweet? There we go. And now we are no longer having to just jump everywhere. You're getting placed down our fridge we stole. Nice. How do I close it? Do I just like... Oh. And a box. I'm gonna put this over by our bed. What are we putting in there? I have no idea yet. Ooh. Well, anyways, I saw something interesting over here, so we're gonna go this way for a bit. See if we can find any more of the Capricorns? Apricorn? Is it apricorns? The yellow colored random Pokeball things. Whee! Cause oh yeah, they are over here. That's amazing. Now we can actually do stuff. Do I know how? No, I do not. Green, can I take you with me? Bye, Max. It's like, oh no, I cannot. That kills it. I don't know what Aether is still, but it looks like an Among Us character. We're gonna plant this though. Plant back your trees. You won't run out of them then. That's a berry. What are you doing? What? Alright, we're gonna try and find, what are these called? Apricorns. I was right. Barely, but I was right. Oh, here's a pink one. Probably not take those down, but you know, why not? Why not? Go back home now that I've gotten rid of most of our health. As it was this way. Hopefully. Yeah, this way. Hey, this. I cannot. That's for pets. Pokemon. Dun dun dun. Ooh, what's this? That's a cave. It's a big old cave. At the bottom of it. And we go back up. I don't know what that is in the distance, but oh, what is that? Is that a... I was like, it looks like a banana. It is just the forbidden banana. What is it? Oh, is that a gym? I don't think I can challenge gyms yet, but what is it? I'm confused. What the fuck? What? What is this? Can I take it with me? Can I do this? No, I can't. Where'd our house go? I don't know where our house is. It's probably over here somewhere. Probably. It's not our house. I think I went too far. I think I went way too far. There it is. We did go too far. We came back with some of. Can we? Oh, we're at 1 hour. 1 hour. Can I eat these? Yeah, I can eat these. Our opposite problem from last time. 1 heart. No Pokemon. Food. Food. What is the way? No, this one's our house. We ran right past it. Whoops. Whoopsie. And we gotta go all the way back. And heal our Pokemon. Hopefully food. Put those down. This is, how do I close this? Do I have to destroy it again? What is that? Cures freeze. Okay, we're back over here. What was I doing? Pokemon. Well, there we go. Figured it out. Wow. Did we use all our bone meal? I don't think we did. There it is. We never made a shovel. We're just gonna do this. I think we're just gonna expand the farm a little bit, and then I'm gonna end stream when we're done that. We'll find someone to raid. Oh, bomb. Just how big should we make it? Probably pretty big, because we run around a lot. And go like this. And there we are. Wow. Firm. It's like we're gonna need to put some more water over this way. Get the bucket really quick. Bucket. There we are. There we go. Problem solved. I'm gonna put a block there and just make it all nice and even. I'm gonna put a ring of dirt around it. And here we are. So we don't end up walking on it, because we know how much I remember not to jump on crops. Wow. Yeah. We're gonna find someone to raid now. Where'd he go? Let's see. I think we should raid someone who's also playing Minecraft. I'm gonna mute Twitch for a second. Who do you think? I feel like we should raid someone with about around the same amount of viewers as we could just scroll down a little bit. There's an easier way to do this, isn't there? We're gonna go search by go to high, because can I search for Pixelmon? See if anyone else is playing Pixelmon. Take off caps lock for some reason that's on. Pixelmon. No one else is playing Pixelmon that I can find. Good. Yeah. Here's this guy. Oh wow, someone playing with other people. Terrifying. Yeah, let's find someone playing modded Minecraft, or somebody who looks really nice. Minecraft. This is probably gonna be really boring for you guys, but I found someone else playing Pixelmon, but I'm not sure they're playing in English. They are playing in English. Okay, 1 second. We're gonna pause the music. Pause the music for a second and unmute. Unmute. Nah. That's we're gonna pick some random person. Why not? Why not? To do this guy because he has a similar name to me and I appreciate that. We're just gonna go. We're gonna mute this really quick. Gonna go turn the music on for the last bit. No, turn on. There we go. I'm struggling today. Sorry. And we're gonna raid him or them. I didn't look at their pronouns. Go start raid. And what did I do? Sorry. Well, thank you everyone for coming to the stream today. I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully, I'm gonna figure out how to make Pokeballs for next time. Just hopefully again sometime this week or either on the weekend, or pretty soon at least. Yeah. I think we did well. Probably not. Seeming we already had to remake World, and this is our house. I think we did well, especially now that we have a Samsung smart refrigerator in our Minecraft world. And this is gonna be awesome. Well, anyways, yeah. Thanks so much for coming, and as always, bye. I hope you guys have a good day, night, evening, afternoon.